improve repeatedly. The important note here is the experience on a mobile device, again, is very different. The first thing you should start with absolutely is a website that fits on a mobile device. And then when you can, move into a rich mobile app. Try to cover an 80-20 rule, meaning that if 80% of your community is using a BlackBerry, make sure you target that. So you have to understand some of the demographics, particularly if you're targeting your contributors. They may be focused on iPhones, right? They may be affluent individuals who are tech savvy and capable of carrying that, so make sure you understand who your target audience is and then develop an application for that. There are great tools, not necessarily from our company, that allow you to generate these applications very, very quickly. We can provide you names, some of those, and you'll be able to get out there and get a presence in the application space very quickly. You're going to want to leverage everything that you've already done on your website. This is something that's real important. You shouldn't be sold the fact that you have to recreate everything you've done on your website to get to a mobile presence. Well, sometimes because of technical limitations, you may have to, but make the effort to leverage everything you have, including your back office. You shouldn't have to implement a new back office system to support your app presence either. Is any of this making sense? Okay, good. No? I appreciate the honesty. Solutions that provide ubiquitous access, something that, again, that's really important here. You may want to classify your organization or your ecosystem and understand how a donor is going to use your applications or how they need to be interfaced with that, right? How you interface your Facebook page. Who has a company Facebook page? Right, so you want to integrate that Facebook page into your app. You want to make sure it's, the mobile devices are very intimate devices. You want to make sure that you're bringing them back to your mobile app as frequently as possible for information about your cause. So you can integrate your Facebook page or your LinkedIn components or your website or other things into the application. And then think about the mobile user looking in, the perspective of the mobile user looking in. Frequently, back office systems, solutions, and if I could use an example of an ERP, will push their view of the world out. But when you think about how you use a mobile device, I used it at the airport, right, in a way that a back office system wouldn't have known where I was, information I was looking for. You need to think about where are they using location-based services information on the device, right? Longitude, latitude. You need to think about the device that they're on. Is music, noise, games, are these a component? How do you draw attention? How do you get that? Are you pushing notifications out to these individuals? Do they subscribe to your service? How do they want to be communicated with? And most people will prefer something they subscribe to in terms of a push notification to a mobile device over email. Understand the difference? Right? One is I'm saying communicate with me, I'm allowing you to communicate with me, sort of an opt-in and an application, very much like an email. Okay? And then lastly, user experience drives adoption. This is a critical component and really will help in helping you achieve your goal. The Home Depot, in our help with them on creating their mobile applications, they have to put a tremendous emphasis on making it a very engaging user experience, very attractive, and very fun. Actually, there's some components of the new release in particular that are coming out that are very, very creative. So you need to make sure that you take the perspective of that, build the application around drawing your customer or your partner or your donor into the experience. Remember the impact after the events in Haiti and the donations that came in on texting, right? How it was phenomenal, it was off the charts. Well, think about the same capability of pushing messages out via your mobile application to your top donors or supporters, whatever the context is, at the most appropriate time. It could be timeliness to an event or a cause or good news or something of that nature. Okay? That's all I have for today. Any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Dan. So we've got a couple of minutes before we're going to take a short break and move to the breakout sessions. Dan asked about any questions, and we have, before we move on, we've got Dan and Mark and Chris. Are there any questions you have before we move on? Yeah, John.
I guess more of a request than a question. I think in many cases, acquisition of the technology may not be the paramount issue for a lot of us because many of these things are lower cost and can be accessible to us even under tight budgets. If we could take the approach that our presenter today of helping us figure out how to support them for the long term or to maximize them after the initial acquisition, that would be very helpful to me as well.
Okay.
And just as a general statement about whatever the technology may be.
So
supporting, maintaining, it's just like a stagnant website, for example. Many of us probably have websites, and many of us want much more for our website than what we do, but we may not have a person that's devoted to do that function.
To find out ways to maintain the decision that you made, whatever application it may be.
Yeah, to help us think through the longer, the step 2, step 3 enhancements in the future, that type of thing. That would be helpful for me to help conceptualize how we could roll some of this out into our organization.
Thanks.
You want me to answer that, or we just want to talk about that?
Either one.
If you want to start with the question, there's a button there. You can speak in your microphone.
Is that of general interest to the audience?
Speak it to your...
Is that of general interest to the audience? Yes. Okay. Well, and that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. One of the things, and what I was trying to encourage up front is, I don't make the recommendation that you jump into this because it is very much a learning process. You may not know how you're. Now, assuming donors, is that the right audience when I talk here, or who's your ecosystem?
I'm thinking across the board.
Across the board, okay.
Yeah.
So it can get very expensive very quickly, and it doesn't need to be. So find out the high target, high value, right? First and foremost, for the recommendation, this organization, focus on getting the website appropriately on the mobile devices, as many as you can. And there's technologies that are very affordable that can do that. I'll give an example of a local company here in Atlanta called Site Minis. If you're not familiar with them, they're a great team of people to work with, and they can help mobilize your existing website on any mobile device. All right, so that at least gets you in that presence, and it gets you outside of the context of running a web browser on the telephone. Secondly, what we typically do is sit down with companies and help them map out the strategy to understand where the high-value items are, and then a migration plan according to your budget to say how you want to implement functionality over a period of 6 months or a year or 2 years. Because one of the things, again, if you're going to take the approach of writing an app, you really want to get high value out of it, and you may write it for a very small part of your constituency. Right? Maybe you only need to address, thinking of one company that we work with that had hundreds of doctors in the group, but they only wanted to communicate with the top 30 doctors for whatever reason. So they wrote an app that kept those 30 doctors up to date because it was very important to do that specific function. The rest of the organization was using the web app. Okay, so we'll do a roadmap with you, and importantly as well as making sure that when you choose the app approach, if you choose to use a tool to create the application, choose the right tool. And there's a lot of confusion in the space right now about that, and we can help give guidance or direct you where to get good guidance on that. But using a tool is a sound approach because it helps you collect, or it helps you target a lot of different mobile devices and create applications for a lot of different mobile devices at your pace. Now there's a corollary to that, and it is an expense of typically someone that has to do that. You can outsource it, you can hire. All right, those are some of the options there.
So the idea is that one of our board members talks about the monster in the basement with technology, and that's the question that John was asking really. So I think as we go also, and thanks Dan, into our breakout sessions, as we talk about what is the right technology, and in the breakout sessions drill down for what does this look like, how do you support it, what are the costs, what are the people that need to be around, or in fact, do people really need to be around? Does this really have a different support structure than what we're used to in terms of traditional applications and websites and things like that? So there's a lot of applications and platforms that sit in the cloud where people take care of some of this functionality. Once you're into the technology and into the platform, a lot of things are taken care of for you. So what is it that's being taken care of for us in the mobile applications, and what things come out, and what other kinds of things do we have to take care of? And how, and another way that we really think about it is sort of what is that sponge effect. So you bring the technology in, and then you add water to the sponge, and the sponge begins to expand in terms of what's really required and what's needed and what's the long-term cost. So one of the things that I really loved about also the fourth piece here in terms of the user experience, I had the opportunity this week to talk to a group of 70 people who are doing technology in a national nonprofit. I won't mention their name, but we were talking about technology, and one of the things that they were saying, it wasn't mobile technology, but we were talking about the use of a Microsoft technology called SharePoint, and one of the technology people said, well, you know, we built these wonderful SharePoint sites, but the folks who are out in the offices using them, working with the clients, they're not using it. So we build it and they don't use it. And so that's one of the things in terms of how we talk to our donors and our volunteers and what's to think about the use of the technology. My response to her was nice, but it was still the question, so did you build that technology for you, which is what we heard about sort of the back office, or did you really build it for the people out in the field? And so I think that's one of the things that we really need to think about, and we heard a lot of different ideas here from Mark and Chris and Dan in terms of really what that looks like. So again, as we go to the different breakout sessions, you know, let's ask those questions so you can say, well, what does this need to look like? And you know, what might be the templates that people are using that we know that works? And how can we keep it simple so that people will easily adopt it? We were having some conversations about some technology that we're involved with, and we were asked by somebody from a foundation, well, you know, did you do RFP and did you do analysis of all the systems and things? And we looked at him and said, you know, nobody ever does an analysis when they go on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. They just look at it and they go, I'm using it. And that's the same thing with the mobile application. So as we think about what we want to do with it, you know, you don't need to do all that, because when it makes sense and it's intuitive to the folks that we want to reach, they just dive in and then they start to use it. And there's a totally different language. There's a total length of transactions, as you know, as we've heard this morning, and the dynamics of it are very different. So again, think about that as you go to the different breakout sessions, and think about what that might mean for you and how you can get started with that. So we're going to take like a 2 to 3 minute break, and for the and once you do that, we're going to have a session in here in the auditorium, and our Motorola team are going to talk about productivity and all kinds of ways to be able to use the technology. And out where we had lunch, we've got the Home Depot team, and they're talking about extending our reach in terms of fundraising and reaching new people and things like that. So we've got kind of 2 different sessions going on. And after we do that, then we'll come back here and we'll kind of talk about what everybody heard and create a general consensus and understanding between all of us, and just have a general conversation about it. So, thanks.